Hello everyone, today we're cooking some Manti. It's actually my first time cooking Manti, even though I'm from Central Asia, but whenever my mom made them, I always helped her assemble the Manti when the dough and the filling were already ready. So I have never made it by myself from scratch, and that's what I'm going to do today because I really miss the taste of the Central Asian food. These are all the ingredients that I'm going to be using today. I think these are all ingredients, but I might be missing something. So for the dough, we're gonna use a couple of eggs, some warm water, it's in the kettle, some flour, that's gonna be our dough. And for the filling, we're gonna use some ground beef. And I also have a pumpkin, some onions, and some spices, and salt. So let's start with the dough first because the dough needs to rest for 30 to 40 minutes. And once I'm finished with the dough, I'm gonna make the filling and then we're going to assemble the Manti. Okay, so for the dough, we're gonna measure 600 milliliters of water first. This is for 80 pieces of Manti, supposedly. The water needs to be warm. Add some salt. I'm adding approximately like 2 or 2.5 teaspoons, but I don't have a teaspoon, so I'm gonna measure it by eye. I'm also gonna add 2 eggs for elasticity, at least that's what the internet says. If you don't want to add eggs, you don't have to. I'm going to mix everything with a fork. Now that I am finished mixing, I'm going to measure 1 kilogram and 200 grams of flour and add it into the bowl gradually. Okay, this is 1 kilogram right here, so I'm just gonna add it gradually. Add it and mix it. I added 1 kilogram of flour, but the dough is still wet and the recipe says I need to put 1 kilogram and 200 grams, and I think I'm gonna put a little bit more. This is almost 400. Let's add it gradually as well and see if that's enough. I'm gonna try and use my hands. The dough is still really wet and it sticks to hands too easily, so I'm gonna have to put like around 200 more grams of flour. I think this amount should be enough. Actually, this is not enough. At this point, I already put 1 kilogram and 550 and it's still not enough because it is too sticky. So I'm gonna have to put more and hopefully this is enough. Almost 2 kilograms. It's still sticky, but I'm not going to put more flour because I don't want to overdo it. I am also going to put some olive oil. For the olive oil, they said I have to put like around 6 spoons. And I'm too lazy to use a spoon, so I'm just going to do it eye and eye. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I guess this should be enough. It is still a bit sticky, but we're going to figure it out. I'm trying to get as much as possible of the dough from my hands. I managed to remove almost all of the dough from my hands. Now that the dough is finished, we're going to cover it with a plastic wrap and let it rest for about 30 to 40 minutes. Now for the filling, we're gonna start by dicing the pumpkin and the onions, and then we're going to mix all the ingredients for the filling in a bowl. Let's peel the pumpkin first. I'm going to remove the top and the bottom. I removed all the green beets. I'm going to cut it in half now and remove all the seeds. Okay, this is the hardest part. It doesn't really have a lot of seeds. I'm going to use a spoon to remove the seeds. I removed the seeds from the first half of the pumpkin. Let's remove the seeds from the second half. The second half is also done. Now let's peel our onions. I'm just checking if they're moldy. If you see like black spots right here, it is moldy, and also you can smell it. And if it smells like mold, obviously it's moldy. I have this device for dicing. This is exactly the size of the cubes that I need, so I'm going to use this because I want them to be even. If I cut it by hand, it's probably gonna be uneven. I have a plate right here. I'm not sure if that's going to be enough. Let's see. What I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of slice the onions first, like this. So the cubes are going to be the thickness of the slices. So I am cutting them not too thin and not too thick. And basically you just want to put the slices in here and close the device. And here are our small cubes, if you can see them. So I'm just going to repeat this process with onions first. This device is pretty loud. I'm gonna take the onion out. I'm not sure if this plate is gonna be enough though. Actually, let me use something else. I think this plate should be better, but I'm not sure. Let's try. I set the onions aside. We're going to repeat the same process with the pumpkin now. So what I'm going to do is I'm also going to slice the pumpkin. Actually, let me cut it in half first. Vertically, not horizontally, and then we're going to slice it. Try to cut the pieces in same thickness. Let's try the small piece first. Yeah, I'm gonna have to apply a little bit more pressure because the pumpkin is firm. So the firmer the ingredient is, you'll have to apply more pressure. Hopefully I don't break this thing. 2 pieces, not good. 1 piece is okay. Okay, what if I cut it in half? Is it going to be better? Not too much. Actually, yeah, it's kind of better. So let me just cut the halves in halves. Okay, this thing is almost full, so I'm gonna have to empty it for the second half of the pumpkin. I'm gonna cut this pumpkin in half vertically, and then I'm gonna cut the halves in halves. And only then I am going to slice it. And now we're going to dice our slices with our device. Okay guys, we're finally done. My hands are hurting. This is what we have. I was supposed to have 2 times less of everything, and the thing is I only have 900 grams of ground beef. If we had 2 times less of these ingredients, we would taste more meat, but now since we have a lot of pumpkin and onions, the Manti are going to be more sweet than I planned initially. I have this stainless steel pan. Hopefully it's big enough to fit all the ingredients in here. So for our filling, we're going to put the beef in our pan bowl. It is a pan that is serving a purpose of a bowl, so we're gonna call it a bowl for Manti. It is better if you have more fat. I know in the stores they sell like 80% lean and 20% fat. It's better to get that one rather than this one, but I only have this one, so I'm going to use this one today. This is the amount of ground beef that we have, and you can kind of see that there is actually even more pumpkin than beef. If you want, you can do like separate fillings. Sometimes what people do is they make like ground beef and onions. That's the classic. And people also do like the pumpkin only. So that's a separate filling. And what I am going to do today is I'm going to mix everything together. Now for the filling, we're going to put salt and spices in here. Salt. If you put less, it's going to be sweet because of the pumpkin. If you put more, it's going to be sweet and salty. Just letting you know that this salt is not salty. So if you're using a different blend, I would probably suggest to use less than I did right here. Now we're going to put the pepper, and the recipe said to put 2.5 spoons, but I don't trust this recipe, so I'm gonna put a bit more. 1, 2, I think for this amount I'm supposed to put more, like 4 or 5 spoons. 5. And now we're gonna put some coriander. The recipe told me to put 2, but I'm going to put more. 1, 2, 3, 4. It should be good enough. And then half paprika. I'm going to put, I guess, around 4 spoons. Actually, I'm going to put 5. And now we're going to mix this. Okay, we're going to mix this together first before adding the onion and the pumpkin. Now that I mixed the beef and the spices together, I'm going to add the pumpkin and onions. Mix everything. I kind of feel like I have to put a bit more of the black pepper. Let's also taste the salt. It tastes like I put enough salt, so I'm just going to leave it as it is and hope that I did put enough salt in there. Now we're going to add some water. This is for the juiciness. The recipe said 220 milliliters. I know that this cup is 250 milliliters, so I filled up the cup almost fully and I'm going to add the water gradually. Add the water, mix it. I feel like I have to put just a little bit more water. And finally, I'm putting some olive oil. Mix it together. Now that our filling is ready, we're going to assemble the Manti. Before assembling the Manti and rolling out the dough for the Manti, we're going to pour some water in the steamer and put it on the stove so it starts to boil. Filled almost half of the bottom part because we're gonna have to cook our Manti for 35 to 40 minutes and we have to put enough water in there so it can boil for 35 to 40 minutes. Actually, I'm gonna put some more. We're going to set the temperature to high and wait till it starts to boil, and we're going to roll out the dough and assemble the Manti while we wait for our water to boil. I'm just gonna cover it with the lid. Now for the dough, I'm going to pour some flour onto the rolling mat so the dough doesn't stick to the rolling pin. Put some flour, distribute it across the rolling mat. Roll our dough just a bit so it's covered with flour and doesn't stick to our rolling pin. Now roll out the dough. Just gonna put a little bit more flour. Just gonna move this somewhere. I'm going to cut this part because I don't have enough space on the rolling mat. I'll cut this part too, again, since I don't have enough space on the rolling mat. I believe this is thin enough. You can kind of see the picture on the rolling mat through the dough. So I'm going to cut the sides of the rectangular so it's even and I can cut it into square pieces. Now we're going to cut it into square pieces, which are going to be our Manti. I'm gonna have to separate it visually into 4 rows. Now I'm going to cut it into even squares. At least I'm gonna try to make them even. Okay, this is what we have. Let's put our filling right here. Now we're gonna grab 1 square, and also I'm putting them on a board first because I have to cut the parchment paper and I haven't done that yet. I'm putting some flour on a cutting board so they don't stick. The dough is thin enough but not too thin. So what we're going to do is we're going to put around 1.5 spoons of the filling. And then I'm going to put it right here. If I remember it correctly, I have to connect diagonal opposite corners between each other. And then the second ones. And then you need to stick the dough together pretty well so it doesn't break when it's cooking. Once you stick the open parts together, you're just going to stick the bottom and the top part together like this. Now the other. Okay, our first Manti is ready. It's not too pretty, but hopefully the next ones will be prettier. I finished the first part, but I think I'll have to assemble more because my steamer has 2 levels. So this is only for the first level of the steamer. So I'm rolling out the second dough now to make more Manti so I can fill both levels of the steamer. Just repeat the same thing that I've done with the first dough. And I'm going to try and cut this one into bigger squares so I can get bigger Manti. Since the square is bigger, we're going to put more filling. I am going to put 2 spoons of the filling in here. Diagonal corners together. Open parts, stick them together. And stick the bottom and top parts together. Make sure you don't have any holes or open parts in the dough because we don't want our filling to get out. I think the bigger one looks better than the small one. This is the bigger one and this is the small one. It's a personal preference, but I do like bigger ones. Repeat the same thing with others. I had to put my phone on the charger, so I'm not using the microphone right now because the battery was at 1% and I just noticed it. So the water is boiling and we're going to put the first level of the steamer. I'm going to cut the parchment paper so it covers the bottom but not fully. I'm going to make it a circle with some scissors. Should have done the second level too, I didn't think about that. Okay, this should be good enough. I'm going to put this parchment paper inside and I'm going to put some holes in it. I have this bamboo stick, so I'm going to use it to make the holes in the parchment paper. I need some holes. It's not even, but hopefully that's enough. So I have enough steam so my Manti are not dry. I'm going to put the bigger Manti on the first level and I'm going to put the smaller Manti on the second level. Because I put them too close, some of the dough fell apart. Like you can see this one, the dough completely fell apart, but I don't want to move it right now, so I'm just gonna keep it as it is. You can kind of see the dough fell apart right here and right here. I'm not sure what will happen to the two of them that the dough fell apart, but we're just gonna put the second level. I'm just going to bend it in half and then cut a circle. I should have done that for the first one. Okay, this is the second circle, much better than the first one. Gonna put it in here, hold it just to make some holes. This is what the second row looks like. You can see some of my dough has some holes, so it's not perfect. Hopefully the second batch turns out better than the first one. So I will set the timer now for 35 to 40 minutes. And while this is cooking, I'm going to make the second batch. 35 minutes have passed. This is how they look like. I just filmed a video of me trying the first batch of the Manti, and unfortunately my microphone was dead and I didn't know that. So the video is completely mute. So I'm gonna have to redo it again and pretend that I didn't already taste my Manti. And first I want to show you my second batch of the Manti. This is how they look like. I tried to put less filling. That actually worked better than the first one because the first one had some holes and I didn't want to make the same mistake with the second one. So I just put less filling so the dough doesn't stretch too much and doesn't become too thin and doesn't end up having holes in it. And you can kind of see, especially these ones, that they look much better than the first batch. So they should turn out better than the first one. And this is my first batch, and you can see some of them have holes because the dough was too thin I stretched it out too much because I put too much of the filling. And I'm going to try one Manti now. Let me show you how it looks like inside. And let's try it for the second time because my microphone wasn't working. I put some sour cream. Usually in our country we would eat it with ajika. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce it or translate it into English, but that's like similar to a tomato paste, to a homemade tomato paste that is also spicy. And also people eat it with sour cream or mayonnaise. And I actually like sour cream better than the mayonnaise. So I'm trying my Manti with the sour cream. It is really good. It's like a perfect mix of spicy because we put some black pepper in there, sweetness because of the pumpkin, and the saltiness and juiciness from the ground beef and onions. Everything just goes really well together. If you like Lebanese cuisine, like Turkish cuisine, you would really like Manti, which is from Central Asian cuisine. But anyways, I'm really happy with the result. They turned out really good. I was afraid that I put too much of the pumpkin and that it was going to end up too sweet, but it didn't. It's a perfect balance of everything. Try making or eating Manti.